Now, Zambia is a country located in central southern Africa. With a southern border it shares with Zimbabwe that straddles the iconic Victoria Falls. It's no country that comes across our radar often here in Tasmania, but according to the last census, there were over 100 Zambians living in Tasmania, and in this episode I'm interviewing one of them, Renella. Now, Renella has an interesting family heritage, with her father being Chinese Malaysian and who arrived in Zambia with his father as a young man after the Second World War. Her mother is Zambian, with a bit of Polish Jewish thrown in as well. Renella grew up in Zambia with influences from both sides of the family, and when she finished school, she moved to Sydney to study accounting. Now, after graduating, for reasons that you'll hear more about, she moved to Hobart in 2003, along with much of the rest of her family, and she has lived here ever since. In the meantime, rediscovering her love of food in running a couple of small food businesses over the years in Tasmania.
I was born in Zambia, in a little town called Choma. Living there was really interesting, I guess being a sort of a third world sort of country. We did a lot of sort of activities outdoors and mainly playing in the mud, would go hunting, fishing was a popular sport that I used to enjoy doing with my grandfather and my cousins. And I had a good childhood, I would say, in Zambia, and I loved growing up there.
What would you say is your best memory of your childhood there?
For me, I'd say it was being outdoors, being in, I call it earth, the environment. I felt grounded, I felt at ease and at peace. Being able to sort of, go, forage and look for your food or gather your food was it was interesting. And learning how to, cook, to, sustaining yourself, I guess was an experience that I have fond memories of. My dad was he was a jack of many trades. So he started, I would call him an entrepreneur, okay. I'd say. And he was also a farmer. He was a businessman. He was a singer too. He could sing. He played in a band.
Okay.
Dad was sort of a jack of all trades. And he was one of those that he could just watch something or look at something and he could replicate it and he could make it happen.
And you mentioned your father was Malaysian?
Yeah, my dad was Malaysian Chinese. What happened was my granddad was in the war. In Malaysia.
Second World War.
The Second World War, yep. In Malaysia. And he met a Scottish man called Mr. Brooks during the war, because my grandfather used to fix the machinery during the war, and he met a Scottish man. And Mr. Brooks was like, if you've got nothing to do once the war's over, come over to Zambia. I've got a farm there. You could come fix my tractors and stuff like that. I want to start a little business. And my granddad packed his stuff, the kids, his wife, and they went to Zambia.
Yeah.
Yep, and so that's how he ended up in Zambia, and he pretty much lived there since landing in his early 20s to the day he passed. So that's how he ended up being in Zambia.
So was your father born in Zambia?
No, he was born in Malaysia.
But he came when he went there, he was quite young?
Yeah, about 21.
Okay.
He just finished school and everything like that, and then they all went across.
When did he meet your mother then?
He met my mum at the bank. So Dad was like, he went to the bank to deposit money, open an account, who knows.
Yeah, right.
And he saw my mum behind the counter because she was a teller at the bank.
Okay.
And I remember back in the day, I think the bank was called Standard and Chartered, or Barclays. It was Barclays Bank.
Yeah.
I always remember that. So Dad went in there and he saw this beautiful woman, behind the counter. He's like, oh my God, she's gorgeous. So he tried to pursue her for quite a while until I think she gave in the end, and they got together, and then I guess they had me, and then they had my sister. So we're 5 kids in the family, 3 girls and 2 boys. I'm the oldest. And yeah, they pretty much got married after the third child, which is okay. And 5 kids later, and yeah, they're in Zambia. So.
And did you have both sides of the family living in Zambia?
So mum's side lived in Zambia. Dad's side, because when my grandfather went from Malaysia to Zambia, he packed all his kids. So he had a sister and 2 brothers. They came down to Zambia as well. So the whole family was there. Then they got married, had their kids, and we all lived in a big sort of family. So we had a little community, little village, the Chows. We were known as the Chows, because that's my surname. And yeah, so I grew up with my cousins, my aunties and uncles from my dad's side, and my grandparents as well. So, like, back in Zambia, like, you buy pieces of land and everything, call them a farm sort of thing. So my cousin's house would have been like 50 meters away from our house. So you saw them almost every day, except we didn't live together. It was like a little compound sort of thing. So you'd mainly catch up during the weekends, and you'd see your cousins at school every day. And when we went out to play, we'd all go into the yard and start playing, in the mud. So yeah, you see them every day.
Yeah.
And Dad worked with his brothers and his sisters. They built the business together. Because we lived in a small town called Choma, so we'd go to the city. When we went to the city, that's where Mum's family lived.
Okay.
And we'd catch up with my aunties, uncles, grandparents. And my grandma would always cook. Every time we went to see her, she'd always cook the traditional food. It's called inshima. It's like a white polenta, a maize polenta. I think Nigerians have a fufu or something similar to that. And she'd always cook that for us. That was her speciality, and we'd always want that. Every time we went to see our granny, we'd call her granny. Dad's side was more sort of traditional sort of food, like Chinese kind of food. But his side of the family, like, we all loved to eat. Food to us was like, oh my gosh, we couldn't go without food. Food was a big thing, and we were known for our food as well. So if we had a gathering or anything like that, Dad would prepare these amazing meals, and he was such a good cook, and it was sort of passed down from his mother as well. And the food styles was different from both sides. But look, Dad loved the traditional food as well, and we would have that, given Mum loved it too. And would always look forward to, my mum's name's Lillian, so my cousins would always say, we're going to Auntie Lillian's house to have inshima and relishes. And yeah, we used to look forward to that. It's sort of, I guess food sort of brought us together. Yeah.
So you got a bit of the best of both worlds.
I did. And I guess that's how I, grew this sort of passion for food and my love for food. It all stemmed from my dad, really, and my grandma, and eating all this interesting food too.
So growing up, what was it like say at school, and what was the community there like?
So there was a school in the town in Choma, but I actually went to a boarding school. It was called Nansai, and it was actually our friends, like some other farmers. They started a school on their farm. The Bruce Millers started a school on their farm. So families around Choma or Livingston and other towns, they sent their kids to that boarding school. So it was a boarding school pretty much in a house, and we learnt, and we'd go hunting and fishing. It was the best school ever, and horse riding, but we still had all the school activities like cross country, reading, writing, homework. But we all lived in rooms in the house, so we'd share, like maybe there were 5 or 6 kids in one room on bunk beds, and that was really exciting because you got to meet all the different families, and they would come. Some of them came from afar too. And those memories of my childhood and the schooling was just amazing. So the high school I went to was a Christian boarding school, which was about 8 hours from where we lived in Choma. It was in Mukushi. And we would have to go to the city and then catch a bus from there. So this was like a school bus that would take us there. But being boarding school, like you had your midterms and your end of terms. Midterms was about 2 weeks holiday. And then end of term was more about 4 weeks. So that's when the bus would bring us back to the city, and then mum and dad would come pick us up.
And was that a different style to the school you'd been at before? Yeah.
Yeah, that was strict. That was like proper. It was regimented, like as in, they had a canteen. You wake up, the bell would ring. You get up in the morning, make your bed, get ready. You go to class. It was like scheduled, prep and homework and everything. Evening from dinner, it was all timelined. So that was like uniforms, everything. So it was a proper, like a normal high school, sort of a boarding high school. I had this mentality, I think I sort of hit about 13, where I thought, wow, why is, that particular person so smart? What are they doing to be smart? I was already inquisitive about, how can I be top 3 as well? So I had this mind already at 13 thinking, you know what, if they can do it, I can do it too. So I studied them and I thought, oh my gosh, I know why you're smart. Yes, you are. You've got photographic memory and you're smart like that, but you actually study. So then I discovered, a little a lot is better than a lot a little. So I didn't want to sort of cram and do my exams, cram for the exams, last minute or the night before. I started studying from day dot, and it made a big difference. It made a big difference. And I got to top 3 and I thought, wow, if I can do this, what can I do, and that was something I sort of learnt. And I think exercise was also something that I realised was really important. And the same friend that was really smart, I thought, why? I realised she did exercise every day. Like she'd go for a jog around the oval in the morning before the bell went to wake up. And so I started joining her, and I started having a bit of a, routine where I started doing exercise every day and going for jogs and runs. Made a big difference. I was actually surprised. And then sooner or later, all our friends, we were all going for, morning exercise and jogs and stuff. So I was like, wow. So, I learnt something there.
And did you develop some kind of dream or ambition or goal of what you wanted to do with your life eventually?
When I was back at school, when I was younger, I always wanted to be a pediatrician because I loved children and, having my siblings and my brothers and everything like that. And then when I got to after high school, going to university, I thought, no, I'm not going to do this. This is ridiculous. And you need like 99 point something TR. And because we had come across to Australia to go to university, and I'd have to do like some bridging courses and everything like that. And I said, no, this is not for me. I thought I wanted to do that, but I didn't. And then I remember Dad saying, oh, I wish I had an accountant, can help me with my bookwork, my numbers. And I thought, what's this accounting? I've never heard of accounting before, It was just straight subjects, maths, English, geography. Then I thought, oh, well, okay, I might as well. I'll give it a go. Dad initially wanted me to be a pharmacist, but I couldn't be something that I didn't want to do. So I sort of said, look, I don't like pills. This is just not for me. I'm not going to do this. Okay, what about an accountant? You said you need an accountant. I need to be useful. So then I did accounting at uni, and no regrets. And finished that, became a chartered accountant, did some further studies, and I do that part-time now.
And was it always the plan that you would have to study overseas?
Yes. The university there was okay, but I don't think we were going to go to that university because it was in the city. And I guess the things we wanted to do, it was always, it was always a plan that we would go to Australia or somewhere else for university.
Okay. Why was Australia the first choice?
Pretty much, because my auntie lived in Sydney as well.
Okay.
So she was one of the sisters, one of my dad's sisters, that they all built the business together, and then she moved across to Australia. So then Dad said, oh, well, it looks like we're going there. So that's how we ended up in Sydney initially. And then for university I did, and then Tasmania. Yeah, it was a modern world, you know. I wasn't so surprised, like, because I could speak English, so it was okay.
Yep.
Whereas if I didn't speak English, I might be a bit like, a bit harder to communicate and talk to people. But because I could speak English, it was easy enough. And learning, you know, the transport systems and everything, I sort of settled in quite quickly. The only thing I did notice was I was so used to having, you know, neighbours and everyone, you know, being so friendly and, you know, it's all about family. Mm-hmm. But then when we went to Sydney, it was like, oh, you don't talk to your neighbours next door? Or you don't know them? For me, that was a bit of, you know, a shell shock. So I was like, oh, okay. I think that's where I sort of realised, well, everyone keeps to themselves sort of thing. And being in the city as well, it was like, you know, we'd go to uni and everyone was busy walking, and, you know, people just didn't talk to each other and greet each other. It was more like, I've got to go do my own thing.
And so you studied accountancy in Sydney, and so what brought you to Tasmania?
My sister was, she was a radiation therapist, so she had finished her degree in Sydney, and they have to do a placement. So she was trying to work out where she wanted to do a placement. I think she picked Tasmania because she's like, thank goodness I can leave the family now. I can go have a bit of a break. So she came to Tasmania, Hobart. And then when she was in Tasmania, she was like, wow, this place is beautiful. It's lovely. And that's when she sort of prompted Dad to say, hey, you know, we're thinking of moving. I don't want you to apply to move to Sydney. I think Tasmania is the place for us. It's so similar to Zambia in the way, you know, it's a smaller town, and, you know, I think you'd really like it. And so she was pretty much the pushes in why Dad ended up applying to sort of migrate to Tasmania.
So you all, like the whole family moved at the one time? Is that right?
Yes, my siblings. My parents didn't move at the time. They stayed in Zambia. But, all the siblings, everyone moved across, and my sister and I looked after them.
And when was that?
That was maybe about 2000 or 1999, because I was still doing university. I'd finished university, so 2001. And then they were in Sydney with me just as I finished university. And then we moved across to Tasmania when my sister left and went for a placement.
Do you remember what your first impressions of Tasmania were?
I remember I'd come down to visit because my sister was working here. I loved it. We hired this little Hyundai, and we were so adventurous. We were like, right, we're going to do this. We took that thing. We went to Cradle Mountain. We went to the East Coast. We did everything. We did most of Tassie. We even went to Moles Creek. We did the glowworms, the caves, the whole works. It was spectacular. We loved it. And Bruny Island. We also did Bruny Island too. So I think I was here for about a week. I loved it. And just being able to explore with her, without, you know, the family, it was actually nice. I actually really loved, like, the wilderness, like, once again, the environment. It was just, feeling grounded and with the earth again. Yeah, I loved it. And I could actually breathe. The fresh air was so different to, like, you know, Sydney and go. Came here, I was like, oh my gosh, you can breathe. You can smell, like, even, like, you know, being in the rainforest, you could smell the eucalyptus. And it was just like, oh, wow. And the beaches and the walks, and it was beautiful. It was like, it was just surreal. It was beautiful.
You know, it's one thing visiting, of course, Tasmania and seeing how beautiful it is, but it's sort of a different thing coming to live here and settle. And how was that experience initially?
Initially, it was quite hard because when I came to Tasmania, I had no friends here. I had no I had my family, of course, but, you know, I left all my friends in Sydney and my life there, and it was almost like, you know, work and then coming to a new job. I didn't have any friends, so I did feel a little bit lonely and a bit isolated. And my sister had made friends and had a network, and so, you know, I sort of sat there and thought, I always wanted to go to London and do accounting there, you know, but I was just waiting to finish off my chartered accounting, and then I was gonna nick across. And yeah, it was a bit isolating. But then, went to a party, met my ex-husband, and yeah, stayed in Tassie. I've been in Tassie since. But in saying that, then I made my own friends at work, and built my own little network, and then things changed. But I did find when I came to Tassie, everyone was very cliquey in their own little pods, if I'll say. Like either they went to high school together and those were friends, and to try break into that is very hard, especially if you weren't one of the girls that went to that school or whatever. But then, I made my own friends at work. Like there was a friend who turned out to be my best friend in the end. She also came from Sydney and was working in the same place I was working. And then, we became friends, and then we made friends with other people that worked there as one. We're still friends today.
And when you came here, was your expectation or idea that you were going to stay here long term, or was it just you thought, I'll come and see how it goes?
I wasn't going to stay very long. I sort of came and said, I'll see how it goes, with the plan of always wanting to go to London and do accounting there.
And so that changed because you met somebody?
Yes. I met someone at a party that I didn't want to go to, but it was my sister's friend's party. And I was, in the end, I was like, I can't just sit here on the couch and watch TV. Come on, be sociable. How are you going to make friends if you don't go out and, So then I went out, and then, I met my ex-husband then. And, I didn't end up going to London. But no regrets. And
So when was it, or how long did it take for you to just realise, no, I want to stay in Hobart now rather than go away?
I think it was when I got this new job and I was really enjoying it. I could see the difference and the changes I could make. I started to feel settled in my role, and I started to have a plan of what I wanted to do. I could almost start to see my future as well. So, and then, I just sort of thought, well, this is home now. And you know what, like, I don't know of any other home apart from Zambia that I could actually call home. I wouldn't call Sydney home. Like if you had to ask me, I would say no. I think it's Hobart, it's Tasmania, and Zambia, Choma. Those are my two homes. So I took a little break before it was before I had my daughter. I always had this passion for food and I've always wanted to sort of do something. So I started a food business on the side, and it was quite hard, like, working still full time and, trying to do the little business on the side. But I actually got a lot of pleasure out of it. So I started off with like a little hole in the wall sort of takeaway, but before then I was already like making cakes and, baking and doing little bits and pieces. I did a little hole in the wall sort of takeaway that sort of serves sort of Southeast Asian, sort of Vietnamese Asian food. I ran that for about 4 or 5 years, and I closed up before COVID hit, which was a good thing because my lease was up. And then after that I purchased a food truck. Ran that when I had time to run that, but then I've since sold that. So at the moment I'm trying to work out what my next step will be. I do have a few plans, but I'm just sort of in the planning phase at the moment, because I still have this passion for food, and it brings up the creativity in me, and it keeps me happy. I think I need something else apart from my day-to-day sort of work.
Do you find that there were many cultural differences between, or firstly sort of Zambia and Australia, but also maybe Sydney and Tasmania?
I guess there were differences. Like, for example, maybe, I guess because our upbringings were different in the first place. People's, I guess, perceptions of what family was to them, I found, was a big factor, as in how they either treated their family or how they spoke of their family. It was very different to how, I guess, I was brought up to respect your elders and, look after them, at old age and all those bits and pieces. So I guess the things you're sort of instilled with when you're younger, like where I grew up, was more very family orientated, love each other, be respectful sort of thing. Whereas when I came here, it was like, oh, you can't talk to your parents like that. Oh, yeah, I can do this, I can do that. It was like you had more, well, not a free will, but it was more like, yeah, you could say and do whatever. You could make up your own rules to a degree. And every children had a right, like as in, with the laws and everything like that. It was very different to where I grew up.
What would you say would be the biggest difference?
I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, but it was just in terms of discipline as well as a child, very different,
Yep.
Whereas here you can't and all that kind of stuff. Whereas back home there's no such laws or anything. Your parents disciplined you, and if you disrespected them, you got disciplined. There were rules, and and here you'd call it something else. It would be, so in terms of that was different.
And so you've got how many children?
Just one child.
Yeah. And how old's she?
I've got a daughter. She's 8. Fun times.
Yeah. So still at primary school.
Yes.
And how's it been? I guess integrating into that school community.
Oh no, it's been great. I guess I'm one of those. I'm very keen on going to multicultural events and everything like that. And given, I guess my heritage, it comes to the Lunar New Year festivities, I'll go have a look. When it comes to, whether it's dark mofo, whether it's, all the different other, we used to have all these multicultural, food events and stuff. Remember back in Muna, I'd always go to them and try all the different cuisines from the different cultures and different food. I really love that kind of things. Like when they have the Greek festival, I'll go to that. Italian festival, I'll go to that. That's how I just love to integrate. I have had no problems integrating in terms of the school community or anything like that. I talk to the other parents, I get to know them. If my child's if she's in your class, I want to get to know you. She's hanging out with your child. I want to get to know the parents too. I don't limit myself to, No, I get to know their parents, and then from there we build a little community too, and we get to know each other, and we go do pickups. We're like, hey, how you going? What's going on? And then that's how I find you broaden your community and you get to know other people.
And so you originally came with family, and did they stay in Tasmania?
So most of my family have all gone. We all were in Tassie,
Yeah.
and I loved having family around. It was great, But they've all since left, so I'm the only one left here. And it can be quite hard without family, and when it comes to, getting assistance or any help, it's you. It's just up to me.
So where are your family now?
Mum's in Brisbane. One of my sisters is in New Zealand. My brothers are in Zambia, and my other sister is in Perth.
Well, what was it like when you got here, and what changes have you seen?
I've actually seen it become more multicultural, to be honest. I do remember coming here. It was very quiet, even, the activities at night, the nightlife and the restaurant scenes and everything was all very limited and, shut by this time, or it wasn't open this time. But now, even in terms of the buildings and everything, there's been development happening, and been finding a lot of, I won't call them mainlanders, but people, one of them maybe. But yeah, coming. And then I guess with immigration and everything like that, I've been seeing a lot of different cultures sort of come into Tasmania compared to the last 25 years. Yeah, it's becoming a bit more of a city, getting a little bit busier. But at the same time, it's almost like, and we're becoming, I think, a bit more commercial now, we're getting recognised and we're getting known for certain things, and people are wanting to come here and everything. So that's been really exciting, whereas before it was just like, oh yeah, Tasmania's a little town. But I think, in the world, it's like people actually know where Tasmania is now, which is really exciting.
When you meet people and they find out you're from Zambia, how do you explain Zambia to them? How do you contextualise your background, I guess?
They don't seem to know where Zambia is. And then when I say, oh, do you know South Africa? They, yes. And then I said, okay, do you know Zimbabwe? They're like, oh yeah. I said, we're just on top of Zimbabwe, sort of next door. So it was northern and southern Rhodesia. And they're like, oh, okay. And then they try to, relate to something that, they might have seen Zambian or something, and they're like, oh, okay. And that's how I sort of say, do you know Victoria Falls? They're like, yeah. I said, yeah, we actually share the border with Zimbabwe, so you can go to Victoria Falls via Zambia or Zimbabwe. And they're like, oh, yeah, I've heard of Victoria Falls, And yeah, it's like, yeah. And I just said, I live like 2 hours from Livingston, the town where Victoria Falls is. 2 hours from there is where Chome is. And I was just, explained to them, like, I grew up there and, I was born there. And then they asked the whole history. Oh, then how did your dad end up? But then, then they asked us, but you kind of look mixed. You look a bit Asian-y, you look Polynesian, you look this. And they come up with all the weird and wonderful. So I'm like, yeah, that's what happens when you're mixed. So that's how, when people ask me about Zambia, and I just tell them that to try bring their memory to something of where they can relate to it. Or
So when were you last
in Zambia?
In Zambia.
When my dad passed was 2015, and then we went back a year, 2 years later, so 2017. No, 2018. 2018 or 2019. I went for a quick visit with my sister.
And what changes had you maybe noticed over the time since you left?
My brother's still living in the same house. Yes, he had done it up and bits and pieces, but it was still the same. Like, if anything, I found life had gotten harder and people were struggling a bit more. There was more, homelessness, and it was harder to put food on the table as before. You grew your crops, and it was just different. It was different. Life seemed harder. Mm-hmm. The hustle was harder to try and make ends meet, which was a shame. And if you had to ask me, would I go back and live in Zambia? I have fond memories of it.
Yeah.
But to physically go there and live there, I just don't think the lifestyle is for me and for me now. Maybe if I wanted to retire and just have a, breezy kind of lifestyle, not do too much, but to keep going, I always have to keep going, and the opportunities and everything are here. Whereas there, I don't think I would have as many opportunities, and it'd just be different. I don't know if I can go back to that slow sort of life, that pace and that lifestyle. Mm-hmm. And I guess I now have to think of the future and my daughter and myself. So it's more like, what can I do for her sort of thing? What's in her best interest? But in saying that, like, I'd always want to know where my roots come from and where her roots come from too. And she gets to experience it, from her dad's side, like Argentina and Belarus. Like, she's been to Germany, like her grandma lives in Germany now, and her father is half Belarusian, half Argentinian, so she gets the best of both worlds, really.
Yeah. And do you still have friends in Zambia that you're still in contact with?
Oh yes, I do. I've still got friends there, but most have sort of left. Yeah. I guess they've all gone to greener pastures and either live in South Africa or in England, Europe. Some have come to Australia as well, or New Zealand. So I'm still friends with some in Scotland. So still friends with them, and we have this WhatsApp group where we, and America was very popular. A lot of them went to America too. So I was actually just texting one of my friends before I came in here. They had wished me a Happy New Year and everything like that. And I was like, I haven't replied to him. So there I was replying, hope all was well with your family and everything. So we still got those connections. Most of my high school friends we're still friends with. And they're all over the world. Still keep in touch with them.
But not many left in Zambia.
Not very many. But what I did find were some of them were, say they went to America or England and stuff, they've actually gone back to Zambia either to start a business or do stuff, with the family. Whereas others have, gone on and had their own families in the countries that they've now, migrated to. I think I'm actually grateful for, I guess Tasmania, as in terms of the place. It's such a beautiful place to sort of bring up children, and I think what's kept me grounded and here, I guess, apart from my daughter, when I look back now, I wouldn't want to bring up my child in any other place, apart from maybe Zambia one day or in the future, back then. But Tasmania's been great, like even to bring up kids, and I've been really grateful to be able to be here and to be able to give my daughter this opportunity to be in such a beautiful, serene sort of place. And now it's sort of just passing, my hereditary, to her, and for her to know where her roots are from and where she's come from.